Hello and welcome to another edition of Chill with Kaiju Kim. I'm Kaiju Kim. Hope you're all doing well on this lovely afternoon, evening, whatever time it is for you. It is a good time to be a kaiju fan. So far this year, we've got Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla Singular Point, box sets of tokusatsu shows and little-known kaiju films, etc., etc. We're also getting something else that not a whole lot of people know about. A giant monster audio drama. Ooh. I'm here tonight with the creative mind behind this project. He is a dinosaur enthusiast. He is the host of the It Came From Monster Movie podcast. He is Henry, the host.
Hello, Godzilla community. I'm not dead.
Hooray!
Hooray! But we're here. Gonna talk about my baby, my child, my life's work of almost 2 decades.
Wow, 2 decades.
Yeah, 2 decades since 9th grade when I had no social skills and decided to turn everybody I know into monsters. It was good time.
Good times indeed. All right, we have Michael Hamilton in the chat. He's first.
But he's not. He's not first in anyone's hearts or minds.
Yeah, I'm afraid not.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
All right, so
we love you,
Michael. we love you, Michael. So Henry, how's it going? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name is Henry Winston. I am the host with the most at It Came From a Monster Movie podcast, the podcast that's been running for over nearly 3 years now. We're currently in our season 3, and that reminds me, I need to make my Patreon announcement that we might be on a little hiatus because my editor is on a boat right now. But I have been into the creature feature genre since as long as I can remember. I have worn many hats, everything from being a paleontologist to a botanist to an explorer to a scuba diver for National Geographic to a teacher, an educator, traveler, and most recently, most likely a voice actor for a major food chain.
Really?
Yeah. Mostly because apparently I have been told by many people that I have the face and voice for radio. So it's been nice. It's been nice. Apparently I have a sultry voice.
You do.
I can already hear Michael laughing about this.
I can hear him laughing all the way from here.
Yep. All the way in good old WV.
Yep.
But yeah, no, it's great to be here, Kim. I'm very excited.
Well, thank you for coming on. It's great to see you. Great to talk to you. All right. So before we get started on our main topic, I like to ask 3 questions of my guests. Number 1, what got you into the giant monster genre? What's your favorite Godzilla movie? And what's your non-Godzilla, your favorite non-Godzilla giant monster movie? I had a very long day. I'm tired.
No, really? It's not like we're working jobs that are customer service based. People say things and you just smile and nod your head and
okay.
Wish America's education system was better.
I hate people.
Yep. But they give us money. But so what got me into Godzilla specifically is kind of like a double whammy story. My neighbor, when I was a kid still living in Texas, my neighbor gave me a Treadmasters Godzilla figure that came with a comic. And I loved that thing because this comic showed this like green dinosaur that was spewing fire. And not only was it a dinosaur, but it was bigger than all the buildings. And it was like it got to the point where my mom eventually had to give the figure away because I was addicted to it. And then it faded because I got it when I was like 6 years old. And then around the time when we moved to South Carolina, I was about like 7.5, 8 years old. I was talking. So that's always a good sign. I think I was going into first grade when this pinnacle event would happen, which is I finally was able to go to Blockbuster and rent a movie I wanted to see, and I discovered Godzilla 1985. And I was like, oh, I remember having a Godzilla toy. And I really loved Reptar, which is funny because I actually found recently at a craft beer place a thing called Reptar juice.
Ooh.
It's a nice little IPA, and it's got a little Reptar dinosaur on it, which is, you know,
Is that
cute.
like an energy drink?
Yes, sure. Sure it is. But what was interesting was I picked this movie, Godzilla 1985, watched it. When it was done, I went into my parents' room crying my eyes out for like 30 minutes. They thought, "Oh no, he picked a movie and it scared him." But they were surprised because they're also like, "This kid's been watching Jurassic Park since 5, and the only part that freaks him out is a Dilophosaurus, not because of the dinosaur, but because of the sound, because I'm sound sensitive." Eventually, when they finally got me to talk, I kept saying he didn't have to die. And they're like, what are you talking about? And then I just was crying about how like Godzilla was too big and he didn't know what he was doing and he didn't deserve to be thrown into a volcano. And that kind of blossomed my love for the genre. Favorite Godzilla movie? That's a good one. I think it would have to be either... Oh man, that's actually a really tough question for me right now. Right now, I like my go-to Godzilla movie whenever I just want some Godzilla on the background is Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla in 1975, because the music, the fights, it's fun. It's, you know, it's a really great Showa era movie, which is why I enjoyed Godzilla versus Kong, because they're almost the same film. Since, you know, Mechagodzilla shows up and 2 monsters have to fight it, and one of them is mammalian. It's super fun. It's a good time. It's a fun time. But I also would probably put Godzilla against Mechagodzilla as one of my all-time favorites. Mostly because I really enjoyed the idea of Godzilla's bones and the like. And then I think right now, though, for me, the Godzilla franchise has peaked with Godzilla Singular Point, which blew my expectations, since when it came out, that was probably the beginning of the end of my Twitter presence, because I was a little against it, for good reason, because I just felt like we needed more freshness in the genre that wasn't just only Godzilla. But I was really impressed with Singular Point. I really, really liked what it dished out. Like, I watch it regularly and I listen to, I have the soundtrack, I have the Japanese mook. It's great. You know, I have all of Godzilla's evolutions in Bandai figures. So I'm fine. I'm good. And then favorite non-Godzilla film?
Yes.
Gamera versus Zigra and the Gamera the Brave. Because Gamera's the best. I like Gamera more than Godzilla. 110%.
Gamera's really neat.
Gamera is full of meat, and I consider them more fun films.
Yeah, fair enough. Alrighty. So let's get into our main topic, which is your baby, your passion project, 20 years in the making, even more so, maybe. Apex, the audio drama.
Yep.
So tell us about it. What is Apex?
Apex is a giant monster story that is a love letter to the genre, but is also trying to do something unique. We're trying to not just do giant monsters have appeared, but kind of really explore the world of giant monsters and do it in a way where I like to call it the Jurassic Park effect. Most people, even if you don't like dinosaurs, enjoy Jurassic Park. Incredibly. You know, Jurassic Park is a very classic movie. And I know people who could give 2 clicks for dinosaurs, but they love Jurassic Park, and so on and so forth. it's one of the Spielberg effect of presenting B-movie ideas of science fiction to a wider, more public audience. And yeah, that's what I want to do with Apex, because as much as I want to like think, oh, the giant monster genre does have a Jurassic Park effect, I don't think it really does, because most of the time people are like, well, this couldn't happen because giant monsters, as I always tell people, Godzilla couldn't exist because an animal of that size coming out of the ocean, what happens to a blue whale when it comes out of the ocean? It has a really bad day because gravity.
Yeah.
Break your bones. So it's just one of those things where I'm trying to explore how I think people would actually really react to make it believable. I mean, I've had people read the field guide, which I have sent to you, that I think will show teases of, and think they're real animals. 12 Angry Men's my favorite movie in general, Michael.
Yeah, we're talking about kaiju movies, Michael.
We're talking about Daikaiju films. Sorry.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know you don't like these.
I don't like the K word.
He doesn't. Well, the K word is part of my channel name, so
I know. No, I like Kim.
Okay.
There you go.
That works. Okay, you like me. Okay.
Yes. But yeah, no, it's been a long work. Originally it was supposed to be a novel called Titan Wars way back in the day. I did sweat bullets when King of the Monsters came out and they kept calling them Titans, and everybody who knew me was like, isn't this your story? And I was like, I have no idea, but this scares me to no end. But then it became Titan, and now it is known as Apex because I think that is a better name and more unique, because the monsters are called Apex organisms, or for short, AOs, which is super fun. It's been a novel, which there is actually a written novel that I have completed but never published, of the first event in the series. And then there are plans for it to become a graphic novel in the Kickstarter that might be drawn by a mutual friend of ours who also uses the K word in their name.
I think I know who you speak of.
I'm teasing. But oddly enough, there is a timeline where this whole project of mine could have already been a movie by now, which haunts me to forever, because Ron Howard's assistant wanted me to message Ron Howard and be like, look at this thing. And then I said no, because I hadn't gone to college yet and I was nervous. It haunts me. It's why I haven't seen Heart of the Sea, the real life Moby Dick story, because apparently old Ron wanted a monster movie, but they went that route instead of my route because I got cold feet. So
yeah, I was actually going to ask you this a little bit later in the stream, but would you want to turn Apex into a movie at some point?
Oh yeah, 110%. I would love for it to have a visual thing, and in all honesty, like, I think it would be a fun like TV miniseries, or like, I have written spec scripts for the film franchise, which now in a way are debunked because I've changed the timeline a bit. But yeah, I would love for, Apex, that's the beauty about Apex, and in truth, most of my projects that I work on, they honestly can be any format, just because the world is that big and that well described. So it makes me happy that it's flexible enough to be anything, really.
Awesome. So when did you know that you had to pursue this project?
So in high school, Apex at the time was still Titan Wars, and it was kind of my hobby in a sense. It was just fun. It was a fun little project. It was right up there with writing Digimon fan fiction, which is the origin of my writing. But my creative writing teacher, a man named Randy Neal, who is a prolific actor and a huge mentor of my life. I went to his creative class for the first time, and Mr. Neal looked me in the eye and says, "Henry, it's very nice to have you here. We're very excited to see what you can do. I have been told that you're going to write sci-fi in my class." And I was like, "Yes, I am going to write science fiction in your class." And he told me that I would never make anything higher than a B+ in his class because he didn't like science fiction.
I hate teachers like that.
Well, you say that, but so I was like, that's okay. I'm just excited to write. So I wrote my first ever Apex related story, which is called The Gardens of Charleston. It is a confrontation between one of the monsters in the story that is now called Narose, who we'll probably showcase later on, versus the robot suit that shows up in the series called, well, at that time it was called the Mega Z. It is now called the MGAV unit. And it took place in Charleston, South Carolina, where I grew up. And I wrote it and I submitted it and I got an A+ for it. I had bad grammar, but Mr. Neal told me that he never knew a high school student of science fiction could write a story that was not just like intense, but realistic. He really enjoyed the fact that I wasn't writing like, oh, the scientist that knows. The opening scene is literally a mom stuck in traffic taking her kids to school before everything goes down. Like, I want to make it real. I've always wanted to make it real, and he has since then been my biggest advocate of like the power of science fiction and how real it can be, honestly. So yeah, that's kind of, and then from there I began, and then in college I did have a professor say that science fiction was the ghetto of writing, and I wasn't allowed to write anything for Apex for about 4 years. So it was great. Good time.
Good times to be had by all.
Yep. It was confusing, but we're back on track. Things are good, and I'm actually like, it's moments like this where I'm happy that I didn't do the Ron Howard timeline, because what I have now, what you have seen with Apex, is what I want to give to the world. Like, honestly and truly, I don't have any issue or problem with what we will be talking about today.
Awesome. All right. So back when you were on the Twitters, I noticed that you often tweet about how you're frustrated with, all the kaiju stuff we've been getting, Daikaiju stuff that we've been getting with Godzilla and stuff. You're sick of seeing all the same stuff, right? Yeah. So basically, you just got bored with what we've been getting, and
yeah,
that makes sense. And I really admire what you're doing, and I really admire your passion. This is obviously something very important to you.
Yes.
And this is the kind of content that you want to see. So that's what you're putting out, and I think that's amazing. So I'm curious, have you seen a lot of support for this project? I mean, you have my support, of course, and I'm sure you have Michael's support in the chat. I'm curious, how much more support are you getting for this?
It's really interesting that you bring that up, because I've been thinking about this, because when I made more reveals about Apex in the community, it wasn't biting as much, which I thought was interesting, because my monster designs are super cool. I'm very proud of my monster designs. I'm also proud of my human characters, who you have seen since you were one of the few people who actually wanted to watch its own, what's it called? You watched the pilot. You watched the rough draft of the pilot with the second screening with our full cast and all that stuff. And I kind of piggyback this, like, all those people know this story and want it. And as you saw in the pilot, most of those people don't care about this genre. And what I have found interesting is, like, the people who care about Apex are not necessarily like Godzilla fans, but they're more like the general public, because they're excited that there is giant monster media that they feel is accessible, because it's not just big creatures punching each other half the time. but more like, interesting discussions. We have a lot of representation in the story. One of the main characters is trans. We have a lot of POC characters because like that's the world, that's life. So it's an interesting thing, but there are some people of influence in the community who also are supporting this project. I don't want to name names because I feel like that's a bit what's the word I'm looking for? Shallow, justify, like, I don't know. I don't want to defend myself on who supports the project. I appreciate any support to the project at all. Like, it's great. But it's really exciting, like, seeing some of my, like, heroes in the community get excited to see what I have been creating on my own, to try and, like, just add a dash of uniqueness to the genre. Because, like, I think about when King of the Monsters came out and how it seemed like people were more excited for, like, Behemoth and the monsters that didn't really get screen time than the actual Godzilla crew. So it's cool. It makes me excited for that. Like, I like the fact that, like, the average Joe or average Janes are excited for my Giant Monster series because they can connect to it more than they could with, let's say, GMK or anything. And what's kind of awful is it's, in a way, I guess I'm doing more of an influence for Godzilla 98 in a way, because
Yeah.
well, it's interesting because whenever I talk about Godzilla, it seems like people really enjoyed 98 if you're not a Godzilla fan. I can't tell if it's because of Matthew Broderick's boyish charms or what. I mean, when we did it for the podcast, we realized that Godzilla 98 is a pretty spot-on Godzilla film until the infamous words of "he's pregnant," and then that third act gets really weird. But at least the series was good.
Yeah, it was a good series.
And the 98 entrance is honestly one of my, like, most influential giant monster sequences ever. I love the 98 intro to Godzilla coming ashore. Like, that has all, like, the fact that, like, boats were coming off his back, and just how people reacted to it, because it's just like, you can't believe that this is happening, because it can't, and it shouldn't, but it is. And I like those reactions.
Awesome. All right. Hello to Sergio. Oh, this is his own thing. I thought this was related to GBK.
Yeah, no. First time my dad watched Godzilla vs. Kong with me, he was like, "Isn't Apex your thing?" And I'm like, "Don't worry about it. Just maybe one day I'll send a letter to Legendary and be like, are you guys, like, reading my emails? Like, what are you doing?"
All right. Hello to Matt from Monstrosities, my boy, chilling with Kaiju Kim. Best way to spend a Sunday afternoon, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And hello, Elijah and Godzilla Burner.
Fun fact, Elijah is actually a changeling, but he's a really good changeling, and I really like his presence in the community.
Aw, yeah. He's good peoples.
He is very good peoples.
All right. From Godzilla Burner, 98 is all right. Most people got attracted to it due to it being marketed towards the Japanese audience.
Oh, or the
Jurassic Park audience.
Which I think just goes back to what I was saying earlier about the Jurassic Park effect, where it's like, you don't have to like the source material. As long as it's accessible, it works. So, maybe we're oddly proving my Jurassic effect point right now with 98 of why it was a success. Because another fun fact, I found out when I did Godzilla 2014 internationally, Godzilla 2014, except in Japan, didn't do well because most people thought it was a sequel to 98 and were highly disappointed it wasn't.
Yeah. Oh, well, I still love Godzilla 2000.
Yeah, no, Godzilla 2000 is good. Hey.
Yeah, we love your presence, Henry. All right. All right, so you sent me a bunch of cool stuff to look at.
I did.
Yes, you did. I haven't had a ton of time to look at it too much, but I can tell from just a glance that you put a lot of time and effort into it already. You sent me one of the things you sent me was an Apex field guide.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that it provides all the details of all the Apex organisms. So I was skimming through it and I was kind of thinking it's like you created your own Pokemon, kind of, or your own Digimon.
I get that a lot, and I'm just starting to live with it because, like, sometimes, like, when I'm at work or when I was teaching, I would be drawing my AOs, and people are like, "Oh, what kind of Pokemon is that?" And I'm just like, "It's a giant monster. It's
not a Pokemon.
Not a Pokemon.
It's a giant monster.
Like, yeah, they're colorful, but
yeah, they're colorful and they're monsters, but they're not pocket monsters. They're giant, and they may or may not be evil.
Well, it's just like why. Are we echoing?
Wait, are we?
I don't know. I hear echo. I'm echoing. Oh, not anymore. I'm here now.
Okay. Technology.
Hey, it never works. But what was I about to say? It was funny. Oh, I remember someone was telling me that Pokemon was better than Digimon, and I was like, "Well, have you watched Digimon?" And they're like, "No." So I made them watch the first season of Digimon, and when we were done, they were like, "Oh, no wonder why you like Digimon so much. It's literally like talking about human emotions and overcoming trauma while at the same time using little buddies to turn into Godzilla monsters and fight each other." Which is fun because in season 1 there is actually a Digimon episode completely dedicated to Godzilla versus Hedorah. Like,
I haven't seen Digimon in ages. You have to remind me of that one.
It's the one. It's like an Izzy focused episode, but it introduces Raremon, who looks like Hedorah. And Hedorah, Raremon actually attacks like a Japanese dance club. And the reason why they defeat it is because Izzy's Digimon Kabuterimon uses electrical attacks on it, and it's in Tokyo Bay, and it's a very well done.
Gotcha.
A lot of tongue in cheek references to the tokusatsu genre in the Digimon franchise.
Yeah. Random questions off topic. Who's your favorite Pokemon and who's your favorite Digimon?
Totodile, Omnimon.
Nice. Pikachu, Gatomon.
Nice. Oh, cool. Are we doing we're doing Apple Monsters? Because Apple Monsters was awesome, and more people should watch Digimon Apple Monsters. Kim, we have some things to discuss because I need to nerd out about Apple Monsters later. Gatomon is great.
Madison Russell says, but does it have someone say, I can turn my frying pan into a drying pan?
I mean, the Digimon, I will note, for those who want to hear more about the writing of Digimon, because I did finally get to tell Jeff Nimoy that I absolutely love the Digimon dub because the dub jokes are the best jokes. And, we wouldn't have gotten Etamon as Elvis Presley, which would have been such a sad thing. But you can listen to our Digimon the Movie Season 3 premiere that had Jeff Nimoy come on to the podcast, and we watched Digimon the Movie with him, and we're able to talk to him about the writing process and how we got Digimon in America, which is actually super cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All
and
right.
They also are like, oh yeah, no, we had dubbing craziness because Digimon's not really like Pokemon where it's like, oh, we're kid friendly. Digimon's like, no, there's depression.
Oh no. All right, so we have your field guide here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 54 pages long, and yes. You say, "Oh my God, how long did it take you to put this together?"
A day, 2 days.
What?
I mean, I've been editing it, but yeah, no, I mean, this stuff's like in my head. Digimon came before Pokemon, but because it's Tamagotchi for kids. I'm not getting distracted by my Digimon rant right now. But yes, look at my monsters. Look at my babies. Look at them all.
Look at the babies. They're so precious.
My collaboration with Mel Cabre really brought my designs to life, and it was really great because she was just like, this was so much fun to work on. So like, she's going to be the official artist to perfect my designs in a style that I really, because Mel Cabre's designs are great, and Mel's great.
Ooh. Do I see some? Did you take any inspiration from the Godzilla franchise, or no?
Oddly enough, Narose is not based. So that's the monster I was talking about earlier in the Gardens of Charleston writing. Narose is actually. So, yes, some people were like, "Oh, look, Biolante," but in truth, so what's really interesting about all the creature origins is that they're not from where you think they are. And I don't know if I've told you this, Kim, but all of these monsters are based off people.
Oh, I think you did mention that.
Yes. So the underlying story of Apex is actually like an autobiography of my life. This is actually my cousin Vivi, because her middle name is Rose. So I used the plant base, and then I created Narose, which is actually, despite appearances, not a snake. It is actually a plant with snake DNA, because plants are terrifying. But yes, you can eat the monsters. We actually do explore the concept of like, yeah, if you go up a bit, because we passed some of them.
Yeah.
Like the wolf tooth tuna and the rainbow runners, they are actually, so there's an event in the story where this like steroid chemical compound, which is eventually called the cradle isotope, because cradles are, because I'm a huge fan of Fringe, and I'm a huge fan of my favorite like kind of sci-fi cliche is the big bad company, like the corporation. Oh, it's Biscuit.
Hi, Biscuit.
Biscuit's a great horror streamer. But yes, there actually might be giant potatoes. Because I think Michael has seen the design, but I believe that there is I'm still debating whether or not Spudzilla or an evolution of the design that is Spudzilla will show up in this series. But the cradle creates this like isotope that's supposed to help solve the food shortages around the world, but it gets leaked into the Pacific Ocean, and it's kind of like mercury poisoning, where like as it goes up the food chain, the more its effects happen. But it like was supposed to be for human consumption, so all these animals in the Pacific start to evolve rapidly into what we see now. Like these are all based off real animals. Like the Rainbow Runner is Rainbow Rushers are based off Rainbow Runners. The oil comb fish is based off the oil fish, and the wolf fang tuna is based off the dog tooth tuna. So, and like the field guide will also have like classified sections. So I'm not, when we do the Kickstarter and stuff. So,
ooh, okay. Yeah, we don't want to show off too much now. All right.
Right. But there's some, I really have been enjoying creating the species that appear with the monsters, because I think that's just never really explored. It's one of the reasons why I enjoyed Singular Point, because I like the fact that they weren't all giant, that they were animals at the end of the day, and I think that's really important. I think in the portrayal of creatures like this.
Indeed. All right, Godzilla Burner. Now I have to think of that line. It's a Jack Russell and chips all night.
Do you have a favorite AO that you've seen so far?
Off the top of my head, I guess the main one, which would be Tyrannus.
Yee. I almost thought you were gonna like the Sandcats.
Oh, I did like the Sandcats too.
The Sandcats are fun. Fun fact: Destiny is Kaiju Hime is contributing to the field guide. Those are the parents. Kaiju Hime will be designing the babies.
Oh, baby.
There are 3 kittens that go with Ahmed and Bast.
Oh, I want to see.
Because in the story that introduces them, some eco-terrorists raid a cradle facility because they're like, animal experiments, we must free the animals, and they think that this lion is a lion, but it turns out it's actually a baby sand cat. And then that's how we introduce Bast and Amet, because they come looking for their offspring.
Oh, okay.
And it also showcases like, oh, the baby's the size of a lion, because that's fun.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Let's look at a few more pictures. Let me just give me one moment to switch screens here. One moment, ladies and gentlemen, while we switch tabs.
Whittle babies. Oh, also Biscuit has submitted a design in the field guide. Biscuit has drawn. There's a section in the field guide that showcases one of Danielle Kaiju's images. That's a teaser for the second episode of Rising. But Biscuit drew a design to tease a super predator that lives in the hollowed world ecosystems that are under our feet. But yeah, no, good pick on this. I was really happy with how this turned out.
Yeah, so I was hoping you could walk us through a few of these images here. So this is from the second episode you just said?
Yes, real quick. Laura, you know I live in a basement. That's like the running joke of the podcast. Is that 2020 treated me so kind, I now live in my dad's basement hosting a podcast as a white, glasses-wearing, cis-looking podcaster guy thing, cryptid. Anyway, this is the second part to Rising. So episodes in Apex are stories like how they were in the old Doctor Who's, where like one story would be multiple episodes. So this is the second part of the first episode, Rising, which, and if you can see this image, you'll see that a lot of dead people. Danielle did tell me that it was a bit difficult to do this, but she understood why I wanted this teaser. So Tyrannus appears. This is happening at the same time as Tyrannus showing up in Singapore in the first episode. And at the end of the second episode story, it's revealed that not only has Tyrannus appeared, but another giant dinosaur has appeared in Salt Lake City, Utah, of all places. And the tail that you see is the second AO to show up in the series, known as Stegoros, who is a giant stegosaurus with an ecosystem on his back. He's got a row of feathers that go down his between his plates. And later on, there's a story where they actually mount an expedition to explore Stegoros. And they find out that there's a whole ecosystem living on him in this feathered forest. They find a species of pterodactyl called stegodactyls living on his plates. And then he's got like trilobite parasites that like eat the algae on his scales that grow. And then they also find like a family of bears and deer and other animals. Because like when he lays down to sleep, normal animals have been climbing up him because it's like safe ecosystem. So he eventually becomes the first national park because he's a walking national park by the time people start getting used to the AOs in the series. So
awesome. All right, so that's that one. We have an AO named Daku. Tell us about Daku.
So in Wave 2, which is still in the Genesis era, the cradle isotope I mentioned has started to become more and more apparent in the Pacific. And Darwin, Australia, a place that I actually went to when I was doing a bit of globe trotting, that's where I swam with a saltwater crocodile. Darwin, Australia starts becoming a hotbed to a bunch of cradle isotope AO mutations. Daku is actually a large reef shark mutation and is the leading AO for an AO species that are like smaller variations of Daku, a bunch of sharks. Daku, though, has a very short-lived appearance because eventually the main military group, UN scientific military group that's called Atlas, they are trying to defeat Daku and contain Daku and his like school of mutated sharks. But then Daku gets eaten by a giant mantis shrimp named Conreet. So that's fun. And then Tyrannus shows up and fights the mantis shrimp.
Ooh, fun.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's like there's a lot of like, this is an ecosystem, and not in the way of like how King of the Monsters goes, where it feels like, oh, it's a lost ecosystem, but it's like, no, it's just Godzilla kind of telling all these monsters to go to sleep because he's a grumpy old man.
Basically.
Your music's too loud. Go to sleep. Do you know what time it is?
You young whippersnappers, you're always causing a ruckus.
These two, like, first movie, it's Godzilla mad because his neighbors are trying to like have a romantic date, and they're just being too loud. The second movie is just everybody's too loud, and then the third movie is the humans are being really loud, and this young punk gorilla keeps getting in my way. So, but Daku gets eaten by a giant mantis shrimp, which is super fun. So.
Yeah, the Bruce Lee of animals, the mantis shrimp.
Yeah, Conreet's a really fun design. Thanks, Dad. Conreet's a very fun design. I'm still reworking my Conreet design because I have some ideas for him. But as True Facts on YouTube does on the mantis shrimp. Yeah, mantis shrimp, killer clowns from underwater. So, going to be colorful.
Ooh,
so
good times.
Yeah,
good times indeed. All right, next up we have looks like a banner of some kind.
It is a banner and the size chart to showcase how big the monsters are to each other. So we have Tyrannus, Stegoros, Zots, Arasa, Conreet, Narose, Platypus, the Sand Cats, Amit, and Bast, Toba. Why am I forgetting her name? Yalushi, Minjun, and Agam. These are how big these monsters are to each other. And in fact, the mid-season finale for Wave 1 is Tyrannus, Stegoros teaming up to fight Zots and Toba, Yalushi, and Agam, the Z mutations in Galveston, Texas, which is super fun. I love the idea that they're all kind of not the same sizes, so it's more like interesting fight dynamics and stuff. So it's fun. I'm also really proud of Agam. Agam's a really fun design. She's a turkey vulture. I always laugh because everybody asks me, like, why is she called Agam? And I'm like, well, she's based off one of my favorite Looney Tunes characters. So if you know the reference, color me impressed, honestly. Because it's from the episode where Bugs Bunny meets Dracula. And Agam's human counterparts are based off some friendships my brother Harrison had, because Zots is my brother. So, and he's a New York City ballet dancer, hence why Zots' body is the way it is, because his hands and like body posture are based off Harrison's career as a ballet dancer with New York City Ballet. So Zots is very graceful but terrifying.
Oh, graceful yet terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like actual ballet.
Yep, pretty much. But yeah, it's really fun seeing these monsters all kind of together. And, Minjun's a flying box jellyfish and has been approved by my friend Anna, who is a certified jellyfish scientist. Was very, very happy about how horrifyingly accurate Minjun's biology is.
Awesome. Now, these all were designed by Mel?
So I designed all these creatures. I have the original designs. Mel made them pretty.
Ah, gotcha.
Because I can't do digital art. I keep trying. Daku is the best digital art I've done. But Mel is really well done and well versed in doing digital art. So I show her my original designs and then she updates them. And, we have a good discussion on making sure that everything's translated correctly. So we have fun. Yeah,
it sounds like a lot of fun. All right. And are these your sketches here?
Yes. So these are sketches about Apex Organism Biofantastica, which is their the fantastic biology of the monsters. This showcases some of Tyrannus' ability. Mostly because for a while I always had Tyrannus have like a beam weapon, but then I realized I don't want to do that because everybody has a beam weapon, and I don't like that anymore. So what I decided is with Tyrannus' spines, his like super attack is a tempest. Pretty much he can shoot lightning out of his spines that go around his body as a defensive measure. He also has like a thunder bite, and he can channel electricity into his tail as well. And then I show like details of the feathers and what his footprints look like. But yeah, it's a pretty fun reveal in the first episode, Tyrannus' Tempest ability, because he's being attacked by the Singapore Air Force, and all of a sudden, like, his blue feathers and spines start to get more bright, and just lightning starts erupting out of them randomly as a defense. Kind of in a way like the Shin Godzilla back lasers, but not as, like, direct, because it is just lightning strikes, and they're pretty random. But if you're not expecting a dinosaur to shoot lightning out of its back, then you're pretty caught off guard, more or less.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
And another drawing of Tyrannus.
So this is the first time I ever drew Tyrannus as a kid. Tyrannus, this is the oldest design of Tyrannus I've ever had. I was 10 years old when I made Tyrannus. As you can see, this is still the time where I was trying to make Tyrannus seem a little bit more like Godzilla. But if you look at Tyrannus now and you look at it then, you'll see that there are some similarities between the two designs, especially the tusks, which are, I will not lie, the tusks on Tyrannus's mouth are a homage to Gamera, because Gamera is the best.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with tusks. Tusks are fun.
Indeed. All right, we got one more here.
So this is another apex organism that appears. This is actually going to end up to being like the Rodan equivalent for Tyrannus. This is Griff. Griff is a mutated... well, not mutated. Griff is a hollowed world organism, an antiquity AO. Griff is despite appearances, is a Haast eagle native to New Zealand that has evolved to be six-limbed and reverse evolves into some of its more dinosaurian traits. And Griff is kind of like a legendary monster. Later on in the series, it's revealed that Griff is the inspiration for creatures like the Garuda. And in fact, there's a whole episode in Wave 2 where we meet Griff's nemesis, which is Queen Naga, who is a giant cobra. And Griff is based off the editor of It Came From Monster Movie, Zach, who is my best friend since 5th grade. No, 6th grade. Zach has actually seen this series since its conception. So Griff is a very important design to me. Griff's got very, like, are you familiar with the Microraptor?
No.
The Microraptor is a 4-winged dinosaur that glides, and Griff's kind of a fun combination of that. So Griff's a fun creature. So I'm excited. They find him frozen in the Hooker Glacier in New Zealand, and they find this like whole lost legend hinting that Griff and Tyrannus have teamed up before to fight a big bad that the Maori in English would translate to like the devil from heaven, which sets up one of our big bads who is not from our world, but from a world beyond ours. So there will eventually be alien monsters in this series.
Aliens are always fun.
They are, and they're also really annoying to draw because I've been recently listening to a book called The Zoologist's Guide to Extraterrestrial Life, and it's been really reaffirming. But it's just like you can't when I design aliens, I try and not to conform to like Earth biology. It's one of the reasons why I consider like anime Ghidorah from the the Godzilla anime trilogy to be like an accurate alien depiction of Ghidorah, because nothing on this world is like that. So it's also why I say the Transformers are the most accurate aliens in science fiction, because like nothing on Earth is akin to them. So
True story.
right.
All right. Thank you for sharing all of this with us. I do have one last question.
Always.
So I imagine a project like this can't be easy, especially with how long you've been doing it. So what challenges have you been facing, and what challenges do you expect to face as you continue your efforts to get this off the ground and into the world?
The next stage is planning the Kickstarter, which once I get all my job and real life stuff sorted, I'll be working on more. And again, talking about a mutual friend of ours doing, while I work on the audio drama, a mutual friend of ours will be adapting that script to what's it called? A graphic novel, which is very exciting. And Godzilla Burner, that might not be a coincidence, by the way. Just saying. I think the biggest challenges I have is just because Apex has always been, at the end of the day, a story that I want to tell, but also I want it to be authentic to me because it is an autobiography. Like a lot of the monster personalities and conflicts are based off social drama and all sorts of stuff, because that's how I translated it. Like my first love triangle literally almost is, I will admit, is a contributor to Apex's story, because it was how I was able to move on from people. But coming back from Korea, I realized that Apex could be bigger, and there could be more stories, and there could be more monsters than the lineup that I originally had. The first draft of Apex had nearly 250 monsters in it. That's not including Apex species. For a while, I had whittled it down to 100 monsters. Now that number is going all over the place, because I have realized we're now not doing a trilogy. We're doing 4 eras: Genesis, Exodus, Covenant, and Revelations. And Revelations is the final season for Apex. And since I have met all these really cool, interesting people, I have started working on creating more monsters based off these people. Hence why sometimes, Kim, I ask you randomly, like, what's your favorite animal or myth or what that nots, because I try and, like, Michael has an apex organism. It's called Ajax. It's a giant Triceratops Pachyosaurus that punches people, in a sense.
Very fitting.
Right? Michael's got an Anguirus vibe, so I want to make sure that, like, he gets kind of an Anguirus thing. And have you ever met Tyrannus Terror or Will Cope, who wrote the Atomic Age of Monsters series?
Mm-mm.
So Will and I are old DeviantArt friends, because he made Tyrannus and I made Tyrannus. So we've had this friendship, and when we reconnected at G-Fest, we've been very supportive of each other's works. And in Apex, I'm addressing something that no giant monster movie really explores, and it drives me nuts. But why does no one say I've seen this movie before? Like, in the Monsterverse, does The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms exist as a film? Like, do these movies, like in Kong Skull Island, has Gorgo existed? Like, are there giant monster movies in these franchises? In Godzilla movies, are there Godzilla movies? Like, are there giant monster movies in the world? So what I've done is, because there is and I will note, I was working on this before Kong Skull Island, but like my favorite pseudoscience theory is Hollow Earth, because I'm a huge fan of Journey to the Center of the Earth. And I love the idea of people who think that's not a fiction, but like a journal that Jules Verne adapted into a narrative. But Will's story has elements of that as well. So we have discussed that there will be a tongue-in-cheek, somewhat plot point where a very popular giant monster movie franchise called Tyrant is in the world of Apex. And eventually it's revealed that Tyrant actually might have been predicting the Apex phenomenon in ways that you wouldn't have imagined. So, you know, it's these things, it's like these little details that I want in giant monster movies that I want to have. Like, where are the paleontologists? How are they reacting to this? Where are the scientists? Where are the religious figures? There's a whole arc where it's like, you know, awkward for everybody because some of these apex organisms were the inspirations to pagan gods. So then people are like, what is my faith? Yeah, I get really meta because it's one of those things where I'm like, what happens to your economy? What happens to society? Like in the first half of Apex, like America doesn't believe half of America doesn't believe the monsters even exist and think it's a weird publicity stunt. You know, it's a movie trailer. Like the news is just trying to like promote a movie. You know, I try to capture like the real thing because I've talked to some of my friends who are religious and are people of the cloth, and I'm like, if this thing came out of nowhere, like, would that make you okay? No. I go to my science friends. I'm like, if a giant animal came out of the water and didn't die the moment gravity hit it, would you be okay? No.
I don't think anyone would be okay.
No, because you're like, people don't realize like the existence of a giant monster means that science is wrong. There might be some issues with faith. Like there's just this like ripple effect impact that I want to explore. Like you listen to the pilot. Rick has a mental breakdown at the end because it's like, this thing shouldn't exist. I've spent years studying science and there's no scenario where we'd be prepared for this. So it's fun. We have a good time.
Yeah. And I had a good time listening to that pilot. It was very good. You got a lot of talented voice actors there.
I do, like Samia Mounts, who I found out. Sammy and I have been friends for years, and one day we were talking, and I was talking about her career as a voice actor, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you know, I've done this and that commercials. I was in Pokemon for a few times." I was like, "When were you a voice actor for Pokemon?" And then I found out, if anybody's seen the Genesect movie, turns out she's the Genesect that talks, and I am so mad because I actually really like the Genesect movie. But I also laugh at this worldwide Goji Kai idea about the image of an angel itself as an angel, and I'm like, yeah, definitely not exploring that idea with one of my monsters called Atrocity. Who may or may not be based off, you know, good Old Testament descriptions of angels. So, and it's an Ultraman reference too.
Oh yeah.
There are a lot of tongue-in-cheek references, but I try to make sure that they're like fresh and exciting designs that we just haven't seen before. Hence why Tyrannus is feathered. Because dinosaurs were feathered. Because dinosaurs are birds. And that's more fun.
It is more fun.
Adds more expression. So, any other questions for you, Kim?
Just where can people find your stuff? How can people support this project? All that good stuff.
Just go to Patreon.
Patreon.
The IckFam Podcast Patreon, because due to events that happened, I had to get rid of my Twitter and my Instagram due to some people going into those DMs. And I don't want to say make threats, but it was a whole thing.
They were nice.
Let's
put it that way.
They were not good for my mental health. So I'm currently not on social media and trying to figure out what I want to do next with social media. But you can listen to It Came From a Monster Movie Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. the Patreon and ICFAM podcasts. Pretty much any tier will get you Apex related items, aside from getting your own episodes of the show and so on and so forth. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to plug. Oh, if you want to check out Mel Cabre's work, go to Instagram at Mel Cabre, Mel MEL.CABRE. And then we have people like Hotter Biscuit, who's contributing art for the series. You can find Hotter Biscuit on Twitter as the Hotter Biscuit, as well as on Twitch. And then, of course, our mutual friend Destiny, aka Kaiju Kim, is also a contributor, and you can find out information through her social media as well, because she made the really cool comic teaser as well.
Yeah, that's right. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. You sent it to me. I don't know if I can have it on hand right this second.
No worries. The comic was cool. Like, Destiny messaged me and was like, I want to make a comic. Give me an Apex thing. So I did. And it was great because the Mayan prophecies are also an element to Apex. But not in the way that you think. Because there was a really great book I read in high school about the Mayan prophecies, and it turns out, like, when the Mayans believed the end of the world, it wasn't the end of the world like apocalypse. It was more like the world is going to change after 2012. So in Apex, it starts off in 2013, and the world changes because giant monsters show up. So yeah, the panels showcase like kind of the first 4 episodes. You've got Tyrannus and Stegoros appearing. You hint at Zots, who is our chupacabra monster that's born from a 70s genetic experiment. You have Arasa, who is a giant Olm that they find underground in Sylvania. And then, there's a hint at the MGAV unit in here. And that comet is definitely not a comet, but maybe more of a cocoon for who knows what's it, and all that jazz. And it's fun. Apex, like, of course, the biggest question of Apex is, why are the monsters here? And I will tease, I will give you a lot of reasons why the monsters are here. Those are not the reasons why the monsters exist. Ooh. They do eventually explain why these giant monsters exist. So I've been rewriting a lot of Earth history, but it's fine. I'm not doing like what the Monsterverse did, where it's like Godzilla's from the Permian, and I'm like, no, don't. You don't know. No. Stop. No. When the radiation on the planet was too high, please stop. You had a good thing going, and then you
done goofed.
You done goofed. You could have just called any scientist. If you want to hear fun science stuff, I recommend our Godzilla vs. Kong episode, because I had a great geologist on, and they gave their opinions on the hollowed world, the hollow Earth sciences that we got to see in King Kong, Godzilla vs. Kong, especially the gravity well, that natural geologic formation that happens on Earth on the reg.
Totally.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Crust of the Earth is a bunch of gravity wells, everybody. So, Who knew? So, air quotes, cocoon. Yep. Yeah. Definitely not an alien or anything. So, yeah, no, it's fun. They're like, Apex has everything for it. You don't have to be a giant monster fan. There are episodes where it's like creature feature. There are some episodes that are just human based. There are some episodes, like, God forbid, they're human based. But it's fun. I think Apex will kind of scratch everybody's itch with something unique, and not just like, oh look, it's Godzilla, because it's just like, okay, everybody's mad about Singular Point because they did something really, really, really different with Godzilla, which I was like, oh wow, this is great.
Yeah, but it's okay to be different, people. I mean, I enjoyed Singular Point overall.
I listened to it on the reg. People at work are like, what are you listening to? And I'm like, I'm listening to an anime Godzilla's physics. My cousin is a plasma physicist, and I've sent her science clips of that series, and she's like, they're not wrong. They're not wrong.
They're not wrong.
There actually are some troll monsters in Apex. There actually are. There are some. Oh, do you mean like the mythical troll or like trolls? Actually, mythical trolls, singing trolls, internet trolls. Be like,
why not all three?
there actually might be all three. I have some fun ideas with the idea of what's it called? The era where like Kim shows up and Laura and Biscuit's monsters show up.
Oh, okay.
It's more fun. Like, you know, definitely not making a certain Professor Kaiju into a weird Gridman reference.
Singular Point was pretty fun when it came to the monsters. Didn't like the characters that much. I agree, Madison. I agree.
Oh, why? Why, Laura? I'm still editing that episode, and I don't sound great in part B. It's a hard time to listen to me on that. They made me watch Troll 2. I ended up reading the Korean Domino's menu the whole time, not talking about the movie. It hurt me. Still a vegetarian, though.
All right. All right, Henry, thank you again so much for coming on to my show. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a real I have enjoyed this. This is really lovely.
This has been lovely, and it's awesome hearing about your project. Keep up the good work. I hope it takes off and gets more support. When I have more money, I'll support you on Patreon for sure.
Oh, for sure. Good. I'm glad everybody is now talking about Troll 2. That is the gift of the world. And remember, guys, Apex is coming, and if you want to see more teasers, just go to the Patreon. I have a polar bear monster that's also a Hedorah reference because it oozes oil and might be an explanation about global climate change, but you know, I'm definitely not putting some liberal agenda into some of this stuff.
Of course not. Why would you ever think of doing such a thing?
Yeah, because obviously I'm just going to do the gay agenda the whole time because it's not like the main character's trans, and it's, you know, people have actually been like, why is it such a big deal that like everybody's surprised that he's a boy? And I'm like, I wrote this character well. So anyway, Kim, thank you so much for letting me be on this. And I was good. I didn't do my normal talking.
Yeah, you kept it family friendly for the channel.
I am friendly, family friendly.
I've listened to your podcast. No, you can't fool me. No, I'm joking. Thank you.
We need to leave before I start stuttering family.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, to you watching at home, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your night, evening, whatever time it is for you to hang out with me and my lovely guest. Subscribe to this channel for more kaiju content if you haven't already.
It's a good time.
Yeah. All right. And like this stream video if you had a good time with us here today, and follow me on all the socials. Everything is in the description down below. Henry's information is also down there. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Catch you guys on the flip.
See ya.